would like to thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Visit the Work It website at workityouareworthit.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes.
Hi,
and remember,
I'm Dawn.
Work
And
it
I'm Ashley.
because you
We would like to
are
welcome you
worth
to
it.
the Work It, You Are Worth It podcast.
Where two friends sit around and talk about healing, growth, and healthy relationships.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I am good. How about you?
I'm good. It's been a fun weekend,
Good.
busy. I did some dog training lessons yesterday, and then we went roller skating last night, and I had bought some roller blades instead of skates. I bought my own roller blades, and whew, different muscles for sure.
That's awesome. I have not. I used to love to roller skate. I never could. I never got onto rollerblades. I don't know. It always scared me. And plus, I've always had knee problems, and you can't really rollerblade very well with knee problems.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. I
yeah.
love rollerblades.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. And Cameron loves it. Excuse me. Yeah, Cameron loves it. We go out running or rollerblading or roller skating. It seems like every other weekend at this point.
That's cool. And it's fun that you guys are doing something together like that, and you're being active and not just let's sit down and watch a movie.
Oh, heck yeah, man. And my butt, let me tell you, I put on a pair of jeans that I haven't worn in like a month. I put them on the other day and I was like, oh crap, when did I get a butt? Woo.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to get Colin to want to go over to the gym with me a few times a week, right? And not, it doesn't have to, I just want to go, and I'm trying to strengthen my legs, right, with my knees and all of that stuff. So I'm not asking,
Right.
let's not be in the gym for an hour or anything like that, but let's just start with 15 minutes. And then every week we'll increase by, a couple of minutes on whatever piece of equipment we're on, and we'll just work our way up to it. Um, and because I thought it would be fun to do it with him, because right, it just giving us something to do. We'll watch movies, we play games and all of that, but it would be nice to be active with
Right.
him.
Something physical to do together.
Yes, yes. So I'm hoping now that I'm not busy, and I've been so busy with work. Hell, I barely take the dog out. So, it'll be nice to, now that things are slowing down, to really kind of get in a routine with him and where we can do it. And um, problem is we want to do it at different times. Like I want to do it, I'll do it midday. He wants to do it at night. And I'm like, 8, 9 o'clock, I'm done. I'm like ready to go lay down in my bed.
See, and if I would have to do it in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
Like first thing in the morning before I started my day. Middle of the day is a big no for me. Like that for me I am not going, no, because then you got to shower after, you got to change your clothes, you got to, like the middle of the day for me, that just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been trying to shower at night recently. So I didn't have to get up because, right, I've been so tired in the mornings and I just want to stay in bed. So I've been switched over to showering at night, and which I kind of like.
Yeah. See, so if you went to the gym at the end of the day,
I would shower and I'd
and
be
then
good.
you'd feel really good and exhausted from working out and your muscle
Oh,
fatigue.
maybe I should go at night then.
I don't like the nighttime one doesn't necessarily turn me off, but I lean towards morning time.
Yeah.
Middle of the day for me is just like I couldn't do that.
I actually, now that we're talking about that, I think I kind of like that idea of that's going later, then being able to come home, take a shower, sit down with a cup of tea, and unwind and go to bed. I actually like that idea. Um,
Yeah. I would have to have dinner at like 5 or 6, maybe even 7.
yeah,
I'd need a couple of hours between dinner and working out for sure.
right.
Definitely at least 2 hours for
Yeah,
me.
same.
That makes the evening time hard because normally I eat dinner at 7 and I'm asleep at 9:30.
I
So
know, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna try to. And I like to eat around like 5:30. So I'm not, because with my taking my sleeping pill, I can't have it, I can't have a full stomach,
right,
or it doesn't
right.
work as well. So I really need I need to eat early as possible. Um, So yeah, if I did that, I think that, thanks, that might actually might work. So
See what happens when we question our thoughts?
yeah. And actually, speaking of questioning thoughts, I had something happen this week, and I'm not gonna label it bad. It's just something in me that it's a very familiar feeling. So what happened was, I'm doing the meetup. I do that meetup group, and in that meetup group, I've met so many people, and I have shared with everyone that I have met some amazing women, friends I consider true friends. Um, they matter to me, and there's a core group of, especially, that like four of us that are very, very connected. I see them every weekend. Um,
Right, your friends that you tell us about.
yeah. So in that meetup, I've also met other people, and there's one. All of them come my meetup group, but there's one in particular. She's kind of is pretty active in it, and but there's also this guy that's in there. Well, she told us last week that she's been dating this guy, which I was super excited about because I've known him for a while now, and he's just a very, very nice, likable guy. I think I have a blast with him when we go out. Um, he's even said, yeah, I love when you schedule a night meetup because I know that we're not going to just have dinner and go home. We're going to go have dinner and hang out, and we're going to party and have a great time.
Heck yeah.
And a lot of meetups, that's what they do. Just, oh, we're going to go have a 2 hour dinner, and then everybody's going home. And that's, boring.
I mean, it's okay sometimes,
It
but
is.
not all the time.
Right. So like once a month I'll do something, especially we'll do it down like Ybor or downtown where there's still a nightlife. So you have dinner and then you can pop over to a bar. So anyways, she tells me this, and I was very excited for her because I do really like him, and I think he's a sweet guy. Now, I know some things about, like, I know a lot of personal stuff about him. I know he's a very needy guy. Like, right? He's a very, some people would call him soft. I do not like that word, just because someone is in their feelings and willing to talk about their feelings.
I was going to say, I kind of hear you describing a sensitive man who is willing to talk about what he wants and needs.
Exactly. And so that I really like that. I mean, he's told me that about his past breakup, and he's just very, very, he's just a really nice guy. So anyways, so she's dating him, and we're very excited, and I was just, and we asked how long, and it's been since October. So it's been 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
We just find out about it. And that's okay. Again, very excited for the first 9. We're talking about it, and she's like, they're kind of, because he is a little needy. He was like, where you at? Why haven't you told your girlfriends about me? Why haven't you this? Why haven't, you could invite me. Like, I know Dawn. I've known Dawn longer than you. Why can't you invite me? But she hadn't said anything. She didn't want to say anything, which is okay that she wants to keep it to herself.
Right. She wasn't sure if she was ready to maybe announce that. At least that's my assumption, right?
Right.
It had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with anybody else. She just needed to get to a place where, again, my assumption, she needed to get to a place where she wanted to disclose and say, hey, this is my boyfriend.
Right. Like, and she even hasn't even been calling him her boyfriend. Like, and then the other night when we're talking, we're like, are you seeing anybody else? Like, then you're exclusive. Like, he's your boyfriend. She's like, yeah, I guess he is. And it was funny because I had been talking to him and said, hey, a bunch of us get together a lot of times, but we do it off the books. Like, we don't do it through the meetup because we're all like, we're friends now. So we don't do everything through the meetup because then we don't have to have the entire other people
Right.
come.
Like just these 5 want to hang out and we
Right.
know each other. So, hey, let's us 5 get together and
Right.
it's not through the app.
So I said to him, I said, hey, sometimes if we get together, I'll text you and you can come hang out with us and, whatever. And we've had a game night at her place. We did things, these are the people I did Thanksgiving with. And I actually thought about inviting him for Thanksgiving. And then in my head, I was like, he probably has plans, on which I should have invited him. I really shouldn't have worried about if he had, like, I should have let him tell me if he had plans, but
Right.
I didn't. Um, and so it was funny. She's like, when she saw me, she's like, I thought about inviting him for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I was going to invite him for Thanksgiving. And I guess he sat home.
Oh, that stinks.
Right. So I'm like, dang. Because, like, and it's funny because it's like I have considered doing, asking him to come just to hang out because he's a nice guy. And here they're dating. And she's been afraid. And I'm like, man, I should have followed my gut. Maybe this, like, I should have followed
Well,
my
but
gut.
again, everything happens for a reason. So had you followed your gut, maybe you would have pushed her into something she wasn't quite ready for yet, and it
Very
would have
good
gone
point.
differently.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. So, anyways, the whole point of me telling this story is we were talking about it again Friday night when we went out, and she wanted to talk about it more. And the friend that went with us had not heard the story yet. So there was a lot of conversation around that. And um, I found myself feeling a certain way. I didn't feel this. I, I felt it the first night, but it was more like a twinge. You know how you get the little twinge, and I was like, but it didn't bother me. I just kind of let it go.
Right.
But I found myself the second time having a conversation about this, being like, why wouldn't she tell me? I've
Can
known
you
him.
label that feeling? Like, I
Not
get what you're saying. Like, you were sitting there and she's talking to you about it, and at first you maybe felt this a time or two. I get it. Like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait so long? Can we label that feeling?
Oh, it was me not feeling good enough to tell. I took it so personally.
Okay. Feeling not good enough. So, did you tell her that you were feeling that way?
No, 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 no. Because I really had, like, this is a feeling that I had to, right. I don't just tell people that my feelings like that until I can process my feelings. Right. Because
Why
sometimes,
don't you just tell? Sorry, go ahead. I was just,
no,
you were going to answer the question. Sorry.
you're good. Sometimes I don't understand my feelings in the moment. So I I don't feel it's like, I don't feel it would be a healthy time. It would be, because if I can't put into words what I'm feeling in that moment, how do I translate that to someone to get that, to help them understand what I'm feeling?
Or maybe, I think maybe if we finish your story, maybe we'll get to the other reason why we don't tell people all the
Okay.
time in the moment.
So once I felt this, and like I said, I'm sitting there, I feel it, I notice it, I bank it. We keep talking about it. And, then that was the moment she said, she's like, yeah, she's like, he keeps giving me a hard time because I don't invite him to hang out. And I keep telling him I'm with my friends. And I said, have you told him it's me? Thinking that maybe he thinks that she's doing something else. Right. And she's like, yeah, he knows it's you. And she's like, he even the other day said, I've known her longer than you have, and you're not inviting me. He goes, like, he's like, I don't get it. And that, and I told her, I said, that it's true. Like, right. I adore him. I think he's amazing. I think they will be so cute together. And, but there was still that nagging little thing. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to say, I mean, I could say something to her going forward, like in a conversation down the road. But I wasn't comfortable with saying anything because, again, I hadn't navigated those, the feelings for myself. And even if they were like legitimate feelings, right? Because just because I have a twinge of something doesn't mean when I think about it logically later that I'm going to feel the same way.
That's it right there. That's what I was looking for. So this was just 2 nights ago, right?
It was, yeah.
Okay, so 2 nights ago, in the midst of having this conversation with a good friend of yours, you had this feeling of, why didn't she tell me sooner? And took it in to something's wrong with me. It has something to do with me that she didn't tell me. On that evening, in that moment, you kind of felt that way.
Right.
Now, today, when you look back on that feeling today, do you still feel like it had something to do with you?
No. Now, today, I'm like, she just didn't tell me.
She didn't tell anybody.
Right? She didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Like, all of you guys were at Thanksgiving together, and all of you guys are friends, and she specifically didn't invite him. She
And
knew that you guys were friends,
so
so she just wasn't ready.
we've hung out in the meetup group with him like 3, 4 times. Like we had our Christmas party, we had a Halloween party, we had,
While they were dating.
yes,
And she was very
neither
clear to make sure that you guys knew they did not know that they were dating.
neither one of them said a word.
That was very intentional.
Yes, right.
And it
And
was intentional, it sounds like, on her part based off his questions.
yes. And obviously he's letting her take the lead in this, right? She's not comfortable. I'm not pushing it. He could have texted me, whatever, whatever. So,
I think that's healthy.
and me too. Me
One
too.
yes, one no, two yes, right? If
Yeah.
she's not ready, he can't force it.
Yep. And he let her have it. Now, that's not saying he's not said, hey, but he does have some insecurities. I mean, and so I know his past experiences is playing on that insecurity a little bit, especially because I think he's probably excited about it. He is a very animated person and gets very excited. And she's no. And so anyway, so after, she's texting him and she's like, hey, I'm out with the girls. And I finally was just like, okay, I'm going to try to make this a little bit easier. So I texted him and I said, leave her alone. She's hanging out with the girls. And, cause he really has been doubting why she hasn't, like, and that's what she's told me. So I was like, hey, leave her alone. She's with the girls. And then I was like, yes, I know the big secret. Ha 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 ha. Ha. And so of course he comes back and right now he knows, like it's out there that he knows. And she knew when I did it, cause I told her I'm going to text him and she's like, are you? And I'm like, yeah. And so I told her what I said and she's just laughing. I think it's so hilarious. And, so then it was like, yeah, I'm headed. And then it was like all of a sudden she freed up to be able to talk about it.
So I want to talk about you, though.
Yes, I know. Yes. So that's my whole story. So now we can talk about, whoops, sorry.
So
I hit mute, sorry. Yes, now that you know the whole story, now we can talk about me.
So when you were feeling like, why didn't she tell me? Like, what processing have you done on that? I know that obviously, like we're talking now and you don't any longer feel that way, but what processing have you done about like, why did I feel that way? What caused it? What do I need to grow from so I don't feel that way in the future?
Well, I think I still question. I know I still question, and it's not that I question my friends, these women. I still question if I've had amazing people come in my life. There was this one woman, and I know you know who I'm talking about, that I spent a lot of time during COVID. We were kayaking, and then she met a man and moved away, and I have not heard from her since. And she would say we were sisters. She would say she loved me. We talked about, oh, we're going to get old. We're going to get, we'll get a house. We're going to travel. We're going to do it right. And so I've had people say this stuff, but then disappear. So I've always kind of kept people at an arm's length to not get hurt. And I think that's what I've been doing in this situation with these women, the new group of people, to protect myself. And so when I heard I'm dating or I'm seeing this person, and I didn't tell you, it brought up those feelings of, oh, maybe she doesn't like me as much as I like her, or maybe she doesn't like me as much as I thought. Maybe I'm not
Not as good of a friend to her as she is to me.
right. Right. Those are the thoughts that like, and I, I want to say this. I do want to say this. This has not been something that has been eating at me, right? That is not the case at all. These,
No, but just because you're not sitting around focused on it and stressing over it and sad over it, right? I think those are the things that we should interrogate and the
right,
things that we should look at because they're easier. And if we look at the easy things, then when it comes to the hard things, they're not as hard because we have practice with the easy
right.
things.
I didn't like, and I know I think you're kind of in like now that I've been working through things for so long, like I can do it a lot quicker than I've ever done it before. Like I don't need to take hours on end and days on end to work through
And
something.
sometimes without even thinking about it, right?
Right. Right. It just happens subconsciously now. And I think that's this is kind of the case with this. So
But I
knowing
think
it,
that there's so many people in the world, and probably a lot of people listening to this podcast right now, who will hear like a very similar situation to what you had. Somebody will say, "Hey, I've been doing X for X amount of time." And they're like, "Well, why did you wait so long to tell me?" And then their feelings are hurt, and friendships can be ended, and familial relationships can be ended because one person wasn't ready to share their thoughts or feelings,
right.
and another person takes it personal and is offended that they weren't told when it really has absolutely nothing to do with each other.
You know, the other thing I kind of thought about with this too was, and I was just describing that, right? I kind of have have a standoffish with like friends because I don't want to be hurt and I don't want to be, I'm trying to protect myself, right?
Right.
Maybe she did not feel safe having the conversation with me because I have been standoffish. And this is not about her. What I'm saying about this is, right?
Right, because you're worried about getting hurt. You have a defensive wall there to keep people from hurting you.
Yep.
And maybe because of that wall, she didn't feel like she was safe because there was that defensive wall there. I get that. That's
Yeah.
definitely. And right, so my perception, let me share what I think.
Okay.
Since right, we're assuming.
Yeah,
We're just
right.
making up
We're
stories, right? We're here just making up stories about what this person was thinking. Oh, excuse me. Making up stories about what this person was thinking and feeling, and that's really what we're doing all across the board, right? On Friday night,
Yes.
you were making it about yourself and making it that she didn't trust you or you weren't good enough, or it actually had nothing to do with her. You were making it all about yourself.
Right.
And now we're here talking about it and you're making it about her. Maybe it had you're making it about her trusting you, right? Like her interactions with you. Maybe it had absolutely nothing to do with you at all whatsoever. Like maybe she didn't consider you personally in this. Maybe she was speaking to this person that she didn't know, and she didn't have any idea whether or not it was going to turn into a relationship. Maybe she wasn't ready to accept that it was a relationship. Maybe she just didn't want to announce it because she didn't know what it was going to turn into. Or maybe she didn't want it to turn into what it turned into originally, and that's why she didn't. Like, there's all kinds of things we could assume.
And I personally think that's probably the actual factual story. Whoops, I just hit my mic. Sorry about that, everybody. I think that's probably the more factual of everything.
Yeah, like, right, it has nothing to do with anybody except her and whether or not she was ready to accept and share where she was at.
And I know also, like, it's funny because I find these group of women that three other individuals that my key core group, we're all very, very independent, but and I thought about this a few times. We do not talk about a lot of deep, intimate, personal things. We talk about a lot of shit. We talk and laugh and have a great time and all of that. But We're very strong women who have been hurt, who have, the one thing we have talked about, we have bad pickers. We all have very bad pickers. And so relationships have not been successful for any of us. And we're very private, in a way, private people because of the choices we've made. And so are very standoffish. And I think I think this has been a kind of a good opportunity for us as well to be able to grow and know that we are a safe place. Like
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, like, even if it wasn't this personal story, right? We can make this on just a very large scope example. How many times in our lives have we found out that we were the last to know, the last to find out? And how many people have an issue with how am I the last to find out, right? Like, we take that personal so often. I take that personal so often.
Yeah.
Like, my dad has to consider whether or not I've heard something that happened in the family before somebody else posted on Facebook, and he has to make sure he calls me before somebody else posted. And I have 23 cousins. That's a lot of people to keep track of, to make sure you tell somebody before anybody else tells somebody else,
Right.
and somebody else posts it somewhere. But how often in families do we have this issue like, oh, I found out so-and-so had a baby on Facebook? Or, oh, I found out so-and-so died on Facebook. Like, yeah, that sucks. And whose responsibility is it to tell us? And why is it personal?
And why does the order of how we're told make
Matter.
us, right? Make us any less important, right? We're not, our level of importance is not measured to somebody else.
And if we talk about something not as life-altering as living, dying, or marrying, right? You talk about just something that happens in people's day-to-day lives. Like, I can think if something were to happen with my granddaughter and my brother were to hear about it before I did, I would be upset.
Yeah.
What right do I have to be upset if my daughter's on the phone with my niece and my niece is in the house with my brother and my daughter tells my niece something and my brother hears it before me? That doesn't make me less than, but it would certainly hurt my little feelings.
Yeah.
How often do we do that? And we make it personal. We make it about us. And really, it has absolutely nothing to do with us. And not only that, but when I make something about me, like, why didn't you tell me? Or my feelings are hurt because I didn't know. Am I taking away from the person that it happened to because they didn't tell me?
So I really, after this happened, and like, right, I started, it kind of, I guess, this wasn't a glaring thing for me, right? It wasn't glaring where it was like this
Big deal.
right. It wasn't like, oh my God, I couldn't sleep, right?
It was just a little thought that passed through
Yes.
your head.
Yes. But the thing about it is why I knew it was something, because it kept popping in my head. Not huge. I wasn't dwelling on it, but all of a sudden that little just flicker, I would remember it.
Right, and I think that you're still making it you're making it about this situation. I don't think it
It's
has
not.
anything to do with this situation. I think that this is just something that our society really needs to focus on.
Yes.
And I think maybe for you, this is, right, we ask our higher power to remove our character defects. Maybe for you, this is your higher power creating awareness so you can remove character defects.
Right. Right. And I think that's where I was actually headed when it's like I was saying, it's like this flickering moment, right? Because I wasn't dwelling on it, but obviously my higher power is keeping it there for a reason. Because
Yeah.
he's planting kind of like, oh, I've planted the seed. Now let me water it. Just let me give it a splash of water.
Right. And oh, you let it go and you're thinking about something else. Here you go. Let me bring you back to this for a second.
Right. But so you can actually think about it and know, because right, I didn't know. Yesterday I was thinking like about, like what can we talk about tomorrow? And guess what? The first thing that popped in my head was this.
And it's, again, it's not, in
It's not
case your
this.
friend hears this or in case somebody else, this is what we're talking about. This is what brought the situation to fruition, right?
Yep.
I think that's an important fact because so many times we get stuck on the problem.
Right.
My friend hurt my feelings because she didn't tell me about her boyfriend. But that's not the problem. The problem is my feelings are hurt because someone didn't tell me something. Why do I need to be told something? Like it's about me. It's about my feelings. It's about my character defect being brought to awareness. And this is such a easy thing for me to look at that it's a way for me to grow without having my feelings hurt. But if I don't notice this and I don't grow from this, the next thing is going to be louder.
Right.
And it's going to be more important to me.
So that's why I brought it to the table today, because it was something I knew that I needed to work through. And I think, like, I've always had this fear of being left out.
Why are you afraid of being left out? Like, what does that mean? If somebody leaves you out, what does that mean to you if they don't invite you or include you?
I'm not, I can use a lot of words to get there, but I'm just not good enough. Like, I don't matter enough. I'm not fun enough. I'm not.
So why does it bother you if somebody else thinks that you're not good enough or fun enough?
Because my underlying recovery work has been fear and shame. And it's a fear that I have of being abandoned. And I have found this life that I don't want to lose. And it having not being told creates this unrational thought process that they're going to abandon me. Complete story. I understand this is a complete story. I understand that
What do you mean that this is a story?
that they probably won't go anywhere. They that I'm not good enough, or that I know, like that.
It's an irrational fear, right?
Yes, it's an irrational fear. So I'm telling myself an irrational story. I know logically is not true. I know that. However, old patterns, old trauma, old thoughts are still underlying in me, and they pop out. They pop their ugly heads out once in a while. And this is a situation that, and something that I continue to work on. I think I'm always going to be working on my fear of abandonment and my fear of not being good enough. I think that's something that I just continually have to work at. And when I get complacent, and I don't want to say I'm complacent in my recovery, right? I spend a lot of time with Coda. I think a lot about my own crap, but I think I get complacent sometimes on the idea of how much work I still need to do on feeling not good enough and feeling shame and fear and feeling abandoned. And so I need these things to come up so I can remember that I need to work on them. I need to have a discussion around them.
So I just want to point out here that over the course of this podcast and yesterday, you have completed on this specific situation of Dawn not feeling good enough and possibly feeling abandoned when people don't share personal details of their life with her. You have worked a step 1 on it because, right, you admitted that you couldn't change it. It was bothering you. You were powerless over it. You worked a step 2 on it.
Yep.
You worked a step 3 on it.
Mm-hmm.
You've just worked a step 4 and 5, and Well, 6 if you consider your higher power to be listening to this podcast.
He's always listening.
So now you just got to do 7, 8, and 9, which is, right, getting ready to have your character defects removed, asking your higher power to remove your character defects, which it sounds to me like you're aware of them and you're ready for that.
Yeah.
So the act of asking him to remove it and then making amends if amends are needed. And you've worked all the steps on this situation and you would likely be able to let it go then, right?
Yes. And actually, wrapping up this conversation today, I will let it go. Because I think that's part of, like, right, I realized it was an irrational thought, or like, but it was unmanageable. It was, right, the first few steps, I knew it, right? I needed to come to you. I needed to come on and have a conversation about it to be able to work my 4, 5, 6.
Right.
Right. I needed to go to a safe place to share my feelings and share my thoughts. And I did that. And that's what this was about. And now,
and acknowledge your own things that are like where my disturbances are and how is it my disturbance and not somebody else made me feel.
Yeah. And, I think one of the reasons I can get to this stuff so quickly now is I do understand, like, everything for me that I've worked through in my multiple years of recovery work comes down to fear, shame, and abandonment. Hands down.
I think everything in addiction, whether that be emotional addiction or physical addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, I think everything in addiction comes down to fear based.
Oh, me too. But I can't say that for everybody, like, because I can't tell you what your basis of your recovery is. So that's why for me, it's always been fear, shame, and then the fear of abandonment, fear.
Right. I think even shame comes down to fear.
Me too.
I do think for everybody, and I if we like look in the 12 and 12 and the big book, like I do believe that for everybody, it does come down to fear. Once you look really deep into it and you get down to the root of it, it ends up being fear.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I don't want to put my thoughts and words on somebody else, but I actually 100% agree with you. Everybody I work with, it comes down to fear. Everybody you hear on meetings, it comes down to fear, right? You can just hear the fear. So I think that's why, and I'm comfortable with that I know that it's like, I know my underlying reasons for almost anything is fear. That's why I get there so quickly, because I just accept that. Like, because of that fear, I'm not saying that fear is bad. I'm not labeling that as negative. I'm not, right? That's just where my underlying issue with navigating myself is fear. And navigating the world is fear. And
so, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. And through, like, knowing that so well about me and accepting that about accepting that about myself, that, okay, not saying that I'm not still I'm not working through that, and I'm still not focusing on it and trying to work through it. I'm just saying that I know this about me, I accept this about me, and I know it's my ultimate core feeling that I have to work through so I can get there like that, right? I knew that this was about me. I knew this was, right, my fear of not feeling good enough, of being abandoned, blah, 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 through stories. But I think that takes a lot of time, because I can sit here and tell somebody, oh, well, that sounds like fear. But unless that person, or in my case, I know and I fully embrace that I've lived in fear, and this is my fear of, right? Fear of everything. Fear of abandonment, fear of shame, fear of not being good enough, fear of, right?
Right. Unless you accept that, then you're going to be in denial. I'm not afraid. It's not fear. So now that you have walked through the first 6 steps, we'll say,
Yeah.
we get to the amends portion of this, right? And I think that so many times we bypass that amends portion because, oh, I didn't do anything wrong, right? I mean, if we sit and we look at even just this situation, did you tell your friend anything about what you were thinking?
No. Mm-mm. And she wouldn't know. She wouldn't know.
Right. Did you give her any attitude or
No.
behavior or say anything out of the line? Was there any disagreement or argument?
Nope.
So do you owe her an amends?
No.
So is there an amends to be made?
To myself.
Oh, so even though there was no bad behavior, and even though there was no fight, and even though you don't owe an amends to the other person in the situation, you do still have an amends to make?
Yeah. I mean, and I think even if I would have handled myself in a certain way with her, and that knew, would have been blatantly obvious, I would have needed to make an amends to her. I still always would have to make an amends to every situation that happens. I have to make an amends to myself first.
So in this situation, because you didn't do anything wrong, you
No.
didn't say anything out of the way, you weren't rude. What amends do you have to make?
I need to make an amends to myself from a place of that it's okay that I felt this way. It's okay, right? I need to love myself back into feeling safe, right? Because, we haven't talked much about this, but right, that irrational thought that I've had, that fear has been my inner child. That wasn't adult Dawn. That was inner child Dawn. Inner child Dawn is my fear.
So there's this little person, imagine, I'm picturing as you're talking, this little girl who is with you and beside you, and she's over there and she's crying and she's sad and she's feeling bad. And Friday night and Saturday, you were telling her, it's all right, stop it, you're fine, it's
Yep.
okay, there's nothing wrong, that's
Yep.
enough.
Yep.
Okay, so now what's it going to look like now?
Now it's going to be, hey, let's sit down, right? I'm going to sit down with her. She's going to be right, literally part of me, next to me. And having a conversation that it's okay, right? Just because this happens or this occurs and using this situation, right? You're okay. It doesn't make you less than. It's never made you less than when somebody tells you something. That is something you felt, and it's okay that you felt that, but I've got you now. We don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be less than. We're not less than. We aren't going to be abandoned because at the end of the day, we have each other. And it doesn't matter if other people come in and out of our lives. You and I have each other. We have our higher power, and we're okay. We're good.
Would you apologize to her for anything?
I would probably apologize to her for not being there for her. I don't want to say the word quicker, but
Sooner, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry it took me 2 days to get to a point that I could acknowledge how you feel.
Right. That's what I would probably make an amends for with her.
And as we talk about this, I just want to say, as we're sitting here talking about this on the podcast, we're saying you and her, but as you were actually sitting there speaking about it with your inner child, you would say I and we,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And I think it's important to say that, while we sit here on the podcast and we talk about this, it's just a conversation. But as you do this, as I do this personally within myself, and Dawn, I'm sure as you're walking through this, I could hear the emotion in your voice a little bit ago. It is a very emotional process.
Yeah.
It's not just a 5-minute conversation and we walk on with our day. It's like a 5 or 10-minute conversation where you feel emotional and you go through the emotions, and then you feel this release that you're not just going on with it. It's just, I've gone through it and I can let it go.
Right. I still sitting here right now. It's actually more intense right now than it was when we started talking, Because, right, that's what 4, 5, and 6 are doing, right? It's bringing it to the surface so I can feel it, so I can look at it. And when we get off off recording, I'm going to move over to my couch, right? I need to grab some paper. I need to, and if I don't want to journal, I don't have to, but right, I need to be able to think about this. I need to have this conversation with my inner child, my inner Dawn, and my higher power, and work through that and sit in silence. And then I will be able to take that off my body, because right now it feels very heavy. Like
Right.
if I'm looking at my body and I'm feeling just based on how my body feels from when we started to when we are where I am now, I didn't have a weight on me when we first started talking. Now I have a weight, right? Because it's been brought to the surface. It's been, right.
Right.
I felt it. I'm I now need to look at this weight and actually pick it up, and I put it and process it and put it over to the side and leave it behind.
Right. So I picture the analogy I like to use on what we're doing and what we've done today, right? So steps 1, 2, and 3 are really as you become aware, right? Friday night, this happened. So it's like getting the bath. You walk into the bathroom and you fill the bathtub up with mud Friday night as this happened, right? It gets all dirty and icky. And then on Saturday, as you kind of processed a little but didn't really interact with it, but you were kind of processing it, you filled that bathtub up with water. And then today, as we're processing through it and we're talking about it, we're taking that scrub brush and we're scrubbing all that dirt and dried mud off the walls of the tub. And now all that nice clean water is getting a nasty, muddy, dirty, gross. And then what you're doing when you go and sit down after this podcast is you're draining that muddy water and you're rinsing that tub.
Yeah.
And then as you get through step 9 and you start into, 10, 11, and 12, once you get through 9 and you start into 10 and 11 and 12, you make your amends and you resolve the situation. You're really just, that bathtub is nice and fresh and clean and white again, and it just feels good.
Just because I get to that, I'm at that point, that doesn't mean something's not going to come up next week or a month from now or a week from now or tomorrow or a year from now that aren't very similar feelings to what I've been feeling the last couple of days and what I'm feeling now.
I think that's part of getting rid of our character defects is those things have to come up so that we can be aware of them. Because if we're not aware of them, it won't change.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, this is it. That's why I think, some people will say it's like, I think I get through the 12 steps. I'm good. I'm done. I don't have to do it. Right. I look at this as a lifetime program. I look at this as a lifetime journey for me, because I'm living proof that I'm dealing with the same issue that I dealt with 6 years ago when I started the beginning of my recovery journey.
Right. It's the same issue, but it's such a different way.
Exactly.
I like what you're saying and I love what you're saying, but I think we got to be careful how we say it, because some people will be like, wait a minute, you've been doing this for years and it hasn't gone away. No, it's
gotten better.
It's a deeper layer of the onion.
Yes.
Right? Yes, it's the same root problem, but it's getting so much better. And now you're getting to the point where it's almost completely resolved. Like, this, when you say one and done, this is not one and done. I cannot do the 12 steps one time and be done with it. I can't imagine if I had done that. I mean, I've probably worked the steps 4 times at this point, and I work the 10, 11, and 12 is just doing all the steps every day as part of your daily routine. Right. So, like, I could see, like, I don't know, a one and done would just be like, I learned how to play soccer and I never played again, but I still expect to be a soccer star.
Yeah, this isn't riding a bike. Like, right?
I feel like it's a way of life.
It is a way of life, right? You've got to, like the analogy of riding a bike, right? Most people, you get on a bike, you ride a bike, you learn to ride a bike, you can get back on a bike anytime in your life and you'll remember what I got to do to pedal and keep my balance and all of that.
Right. It might take you a second before you can get back into real flow, but you can get back on and ride right away.
But this program, this recovery work, I can remember that it was hard. I can remember But to be able to fall right back into working the steps, like Rick, you just said, I worked through a process with the steps just now, like today.
Right.
But if I put this to the side for 5, 10 years and then and come back, I'm not going to be able to work a step like this in.
It's a habit, right? It's like creating. It's like creating a habit. It's like creating a path.
Yep.
There you go. It's like carving a path out of a forest. We are literally
Yes.
creating neural pathways in our brain. So I picture that as we are walking through the forest and we are creating a path in the forest. If you walk that path multiple times a day, every day, you're just going to have a wide open dirt path, right? We've all seen deer trails or bear trails or four-wheeler trails. There's no leaves. There's a wide open path. You just walk right on through. But if you stop using that path and you don't go on that path for 6 months or a year, there's grass going to grow. There's trees going to grow. There's branches going to grow. God forbid you don't go on that path for 5 or 10 years. Good luck finding it. You got to rebuild it all over again.
Right.
That's what this is. This for me, and not for everybody, right? I do know people who have worked the program and they worked the 12 steps once and they are done. They are out of the program. That is how they live. They do what they need to do in their daily life and they're happy with it just by working the program one time. For me, it is a way of life. I have to work this program all day, every day. I have to keep it front and center. And if I do not, I will fall back into my old patterns. And I don't want to be that person.
And I think it comes really honestly with self-awareness. And I say that because while you were talking, one of the things that popped into my head was working the program all day, every day, and everything I do, I have to be working my program. I even work, have you ever I'm numbing out and I'm going to scroll through social media or I'm going to play a game or there's a point my mind is still thinking about recovery because recovery is just always in the back of my head.
Right.
That I can, I've been scrolling and then all of a sudden it'll be my recovery kicks in. What are you doing? You're numbing out. You can't be numbing out. You can numb.
Right. What are you avoiding?
Now.
Are you really just relaxing or are you avoiding something?
Exactly. Right. So there's, I think, part of what we're saying about it's just recovery is always in the back of my head. In everything I do, it's, hey, are you? And it's really my higher power. He's the one hey, done. Here you go. Let me make sure you're thinking.
But if you ignored that for 6 months or a year or 5 years, would it still be forefront in the back of your mind?
No. And I personally believe for me, after a week, after 2 weeks, it gets a little farther away.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely feel like when I miss a straight week of meetings and a week of sponsees and I only do my meditations, within a week, I can start to feel the anxiety creeping in.
I think that is actually a really good point of what has happened with this situation. I've been very, very busy with work.
Yes. Yeah.
We have not podcast. This will be the first time we've podcast in 3 weeks ago, I think is when we did it last.
Yeah. Was it 2 or 3 weeks? Yeah, it was. And then I know you haven't been focused at the meeting a lot.
Nope. I actually didn't go this week at all. The week before I was literally working and listening to the meeting at the same time. So I've not done any sponsee calls. I've done one each week, but then I'm doing that exhausted on a Sunday night, knowing I'm going back into work the next day.
So you have not put your recovery forefront at all the last couple weeks.
It's been that way, honestly, for 2 months.
Which you knew was coming. It's that time of year with work. You've mentioned that a few times.
Right. I know that. I know it's something that I have to work very hard at this time of year, meaning my recovery, right? Because I'm not, right? Recovery is kind of easy in a way. That's what I love about sponsoring. That's what I love about doing this podcast, right? I can show up for a meeting once a week and that's great. But I, if I'm really not doing something in between each Thursday night,
Or
right?
even not focused on the meeting, right? While you're
Right.
working and listening, you're only half listening.
Exactly. So like, maybe if I would have been in tune with my recovery and I would have been in my normal mindset of my recovery with my, connecting with my sponsees, connecting my meetings, the, podcast, doing all of my, my administrative coda work that I do for the meeting. If I would have been in maybe doing that, maybe this wouldn't even have popped up. Might not even have been a blip. Maybe I would have never felt it. I don't know. I can't say. I'm not a mind reader. I'm not my higher power.
Or maybe that's what part of this that you were supposed to see from it and learn from it, right?
Right?
Maybe that's the second half of the growth from this. It's not just that it's not personal, it's also that if my recovery is not more important than work, then I will fall back into old patterns.
And it's really ironic. It's really not ironic, but I'm going to use that word. It's really ironic that, and I told you earlier that we kind of wrapped up, on Friday, that it happened this weekend.
Right, it is.
Right? Because boom, now you and I are connecting today, which just again, I don't think is a coincidence, right? It happened. You and I met today, or meeting today. I'm back full in with my sponsee calls this week. I'll be back full in with this week's meeting. I've been doing administrative stuff this week, and I've been able to get the medallion cards around, and just I'm back in this little this mindset, and it's almost like higher power was like, okay, Dawn, I gave you this couple of months. I understand, right? It's okay. You needed this. You were just trying to get through.
And
But
now it's
hey,
time to get back on the horse. Let's go.
yep, that's exactly what it was. That's what I kind of feel like. It's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw you to the wolves, and not in a mean, hateful way, but okay, I'm gonna bring you we're not gonna do this taper in crap. Here you go, work it and get back to it. Let's go. You got shit to get done. Let's do it.
Right. I think that's how life works. And it's crazy how I don't believe in coincidences, right? But so many times we say, oh, that's just coincidence. So many times people would bypass that feeling Friday night, the processing Saturday, this podcast Sunday, and where you get back to work and coda and recovery life Monday. So many people would be like, oh, whatever. We're not even going to look at it. It's just a coincidence. Yeah. But again, part of this new way of life that I have, and I still call it new, even though, gosh, It's been almost 3 years, it is, where does it tie together? How is this not just a coincidence? And what can I learn from it, right? How is it something I can do something about and something I can change so I can be okay? Not somebody else made me feel this way and so it's their fault, so I got to stop talking to them.
I believe higher power knows me too as so well that it would have been harder, I think, to get into this week transition. And I think this is where the falling off of recovery can happen. It's hard to get back on the horse. And I love that you use that analogy, right? Because we use that in everything. Something happens, and an accident, and they don't want to drive. Get back on the horse. And I think it's hard to sometimes get back on the horse, right? It's like,
well, think about that analogy, right? My daughter rides. She does horseback riding. Imagine falling off of a horse. This is a 1-ton animal that's freaking 10 feet tall or 8 feet tall, and you're sitting on its back. Imagine falling off of one, how much that hurts and how scary that is, and then having to get back on it after it just knocked you down.
So here's an interesting story. I've never told you this story. I grew up riding. That I had horses growing up, and God, I love them. And there was a time that I got on the horse, and my dad some people came around. He wanted to show. Okay, so my dad bought a retired Kentucky Derby thoroughbred. So that's what I learned to ride on. Yeah. I also told you how I grew up. So
Yes, learning to ride on a retired Kentucky Derby horse is not, yeah.
man, this horse was gorgeous. Cricket. That was his, I mean, he had the tattooed lip. So he was legit. So I learned to ride on him, and we'd go, and I had learned to ride in the pasture, and my dad had a very large pasture, so I could run him and just run him in circles. The thing is, he is a racehorse.
Right.
He knew how to take corners.
Hell
he knew
yeah.
exactly his width to take a corner. So I was riding him we were moving. He was, oh God. Oh, it makes me so happy to even think about it. We took a corner, and he didn't give my leg enough space.
Ooh, ow.
And I, of course, fell off, ended up in barbed wire. And I ended up with a big scratch down my face.
I mean, you're lucky you didn't have a broken ankle.
Yes, I'm very, very lucky. Obviously, I passed out. They think I could have hit the post. But then I obviously rushed to the emergency room. Everything was fine, right? But there is a freedom getting on a horse and just letting your body become part of the horse and running.
Just let that horse run. My kids call it flying.
Yeah. Oh my God. It is probably one of the best highs I've ever had in my life. Anyways, so I tell you this story because I had to get back on the horse, and I did the next day. And then my dad sold the horses, they got rid of them because they were moving, and my sister and I, were in our 20s, and we just didn't ride as much and go over there as much. So I then got out of riding horses. And when I went to Gatlinburg a few years ago, the first time I walked the bridge, I went horseback riding. I used to be able to just get on a horse like nothing. I didn't need...
You just swing on up there.
Right. It was like second nature. I could do it so fast and so easily. I went to get back on this horse, and it wasn't as easy. It took a little bit more work. It wasn't fluid because I had gotten out of the fluidity of getting on the horse.
Those muscles weren't strong.
Right. That muscle memory was gone. Right. It was still there. It remembered what to do. It remembered, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. But the fluidity, the natural part of your body just taking over was gone because I hadn't worked it in years.
Every muscle is that way, including your brain.
Yep.
All of them.
So
I think that's such a good place to end.
Yeah. So that's what recovery is. It's just coming. You've got to keep it. You've got to keep doing it. You've got to keep it in place. You've got to make it there every day, or it's going to the muscle memory is going to just fade away. It'll still be there.
You got to use it.
Yep. Got to use it.
Use it or lose it. Right. Yeah. It'll still be there, but you're just going to have to make those muscles stronger again.
Mm-hmm. So get back on the horse.
All right. Thank you so much, Dawn. That's been such a great conversation today.
Well, thank you for helping me work through this. I need to go make an amends to my little Dawn and let this go and keep it moving.
Thanks for being a guinea pig.
Sure. I have no problem being the guinea pig. That's kind of what I use this for. It's for me, it's let me just work through my own shit. I'm such a selfish recovery person. I need to work through my shit. I'm going to do it on the podcast.
I love it. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right? So, all right. Have a great week, Ashley. And listeners, have a great week.
Yes, listeners, Dawn. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Visit the Work It website at workityouareworthit.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes. And remember, work it because you are worth it.